Hi there, Serial Trader here. I think it's a good time for another Bitcoin update. So to start off, we're going to look at the more immediately bullish scenario, which is still valid as long as we hold the recent lows here. Now, in this interpretation, we have our wave one up, wave two down, and then that wave two down ended in February. We had this enormous wave three up, this entire move up. We'll call that wave three. That terminated in late June. And then we had this three-wave decline, this flat pattern, and that terminated in mid-July. And that's for that large degree wave 4. And now we potentially have a series of 1s and 2s. So we have the initial 1, 2 up of 5. And then we have another 1, 2, and then we need a 3, 4, 5 of 3 for an extended third. And then we'd have a 4, 5 to complete that larger 5. Which would complete the larger 1, and then we'd be looking for that wave 2 down. So this is kind of the more immediately bullish interpretation, and at this point, it absolutely, I'm going to say, it likely should hold. If this is going to work like this, it should hold the recent lows of 95.22, at least on Bitfinex here. But let's just call it around 9,500, depending on what exchange you look at, and the ultimate low that has to hold here would be this previous wave 2, and on Bitfinex that's 91.04. Whatever exchange you're trading, just use the numbers off of that. So I mean, this looks good. It's certainly a viable interpretation, but again, these lows, for this to work, it absolutely has to hold at this point. So if you are positioned off this interpretation, your stop absolutely has to go below the previous support here, right here. So on Bitfinex, that'd be, let's just call it 9,100 to make it a round number. So you're long against 9,100 here for this to be your interpretation. Now, even though this looks pretty decent, and until proven otherwise, it's certainly viable, I have this interpretation as well, which I think is also quite viable. And in this interpretation, okay, we have wave 1, wave 2. We had a wave 3 that ended here. Okay, we had the wave 4 triangle that ended here, and then we had this blast up in wave 5 that terminated our large degree wave 1. So intermediate degree wave 5, primary degree wave 1, as I have it labeled here. And then we were working this W, X, and now possibly coming down in Y to finish this move for that large degree wave 2. So even though this is more short-term bearish of an interpretation, and implies that we take out the lows around 9,000, once we do that and complete this pattern, if it plays out like this, I mean, this is the buying opportunity of the year, or even of a lifetime, depending how you look at it, because then you'd be positioning for this primary degree wave 3. I mean, who knows how far that could go. Bitcoin has a way of exceeding expectations once it gets trending. So this one, even though I like the immediately bullish scenario as far as how it feels, this one would actually be a better opportunity longer term, but it would involve some more shorter term downside here. So if I want to dig into this, there's some things I like about this. And okay, I'll also point out just some relationships before I get in closer. So here I just have the fib retracement of the overall move up from December to our high there, close to 14,000, 13,764 on this chart. So overall fib retracement, the 50% gets us here, the 618, 61.8% gets us here. And that's just nice in this consolidation zone we had before. So that's a nice area to come down and test as support. So I like that just structurally. We have the relationship now that we look like we have a potential X wave firmly in place. We have the relationship between W and Y projected off of X. So the equality relationship comes in at 76.45. So right in this zone between these two fib retracements. So that's a nice cluster along with the, just the congestion area there. And then we also have the bottom of the channel here. And I have a couple channels drawn up, but they're very similar. So I wanted to draw them both just to have a range, just to have an exact area to look for. So I like that we have this cluster of relationships along with the bottom of this channel. If we do get down here and break below the 9,000 low, essentially, you'd be looking to buy anywhere. You should essentially just be averaging in at that point. Once we're, if we go in a nice sharp sell-off, start getting oversold, break those supports, you don't know exactly where it's going to bottom, but you just start buying in separate orders here, all the way down to, let's call it even into the 6,000s in an extreme scenario. But I would suspect you'd find your bottom somewhere in this little box here. All right, so that's the, this is definitely one to watch. And also I want to point out some time, so we've gone through some price relationships. So some time relationships, so we have the length of time that W took, projected off of X, and then we also have just the length of X, which is very similar to the length of time that W took, projected off of X. So those two relationships gets you to August 26th and August 27th. So basically, within the next couple weeks, towards the end of August, as far as time symmetry goes, if this three-wave decline and this three-wave decline and this three-wave decline, if we get it, are all similar in length, which so far W and X are very similar in length. They're basically a day apart in length, so I like that time symmetry. So if we get a nice sell-off here into this time zone, and we start finding support here in this area, that'll just be a nice confluence of time and price relationships, and that'll be a point where you want to be buying with two fists. Okay, veins popping out of your neck, like that is the buy of the year. If you missed February, okay, so let's go back. I did a video in February, showing why that was a good buying opportunity at the time. Not knowing, of course, whether we'd have this extreme impulsive wave up or if we just have a C wave up, but it was still a nice trade setup either way. It ended up being, the extreme scenario where we started this major impulse wave. But if you missed that February buying opportunity and you're kicking yourself, if we do set up like this is kind of your next opportunity of that caliber, okay? So all eyes on target here. So that's the scenario I want to go through there. And that's where we have this double three, a flat, a zigzag, and then perhaps another zigzag, a double three. Not a double zigzag, but a double three. Still WXY as it's labeled here. All right. So that is that scenario. I think I've gone through that extensively enough. Now there's one thing I'll just quickly go through here. And there's no labels on this chart, but I wanted to go through something. So this is the daily chart. I've got some moving averages on this chart. So we have the 200-day moving average, the 100-day, and the 50-day. So if you've noticed, we've done a nice, bullish hammer here, and that was on August 15th. Nice bullish hammer right off that 100-day moving average. So again, as long as those key levels held from that first chart I was showing you, we can certainly go with the 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we got to wait 3 of 3 dead ahead here. And it certainly hasn't disproven that yet. We got to take out these lows to actually embrace that larger pullback, and we're just not there yet. But I wanted to go through, so how have these moving averages acted? So let's forget about this big bear market we had in 2018, because obviously moving averages were acting as resistance there, not support. But going back to that big bull phase we had in 2017. So once we really got going here, what really acted as support? That's why. So if you look here, the 100-day moving average on these big pullbacks within that larger 2017 bull market we had, the 100-day moving average acted as some pretty good support here, okay? And you can see here, nice reaction. Didn't react right off of the 100-day, but pretty close to it. And here as well, you had that nice support right out of that 100-day moving average. And then after that, it got even more bullish, and the 50-day moving average started acting support, couldn't get down to the 100. And then we finally, had our bear phase. But what I'm saying is, it wouldn't be unusual based on that bull market trend for me for this 100-day moving average to act as a nice support area. So far we've seen it. Whether it holds or not remains to be seen. But I just thought that was interesting to point out. Now another thing, so I'll look at the weekly candles here. And it's always good to look at the weekly chart sometimes. And, okay, we haven't quite closed this weekly candle, although it's likely going to close, I think, this evening. And we technically have a weekly bearish engulfing candlestick. So we closed this week here on Bitfinex at 11,565. We opened this week higher than that, 11,575. And if we close anywhere below the open here on this week, which was at 10,973, we're currently well below that. Well, the weekly bearish engulfing, which just based off of that, no Elliott or anything else, would certainly suggest we need some further downside, which would add some probability, I would say, to the the scenario we got over here. That's calling for just another leg down in a Y wave to complete that larger 2. So yeah, I mean, as far as trading goes, if you're long, you can stay long here, but you absolutely need to have your stop below the previous lows, because if we do break them, it's highly likely we come down into this cluster of relationships, and that would be a good 30, maybe 25-30% drop from current levels. So you certainly want to get out of the way of that, unless you don't mind riding through it and just adding down there. That's certainly a viable scenario as well, or a viable strategy. So yeah, if you're long, definitely have your stops under these lows, just below them. If you're I guess if you want to get long and you're not long yet, you could certainly enter anywhere from current levels, put your stops below those lows, and if we're going to go in this scenario, which is a little more short-term bullish here, or just more immediately bullish without having to correct further, you can go long here and just put your, at this point, I would put my stop in this scenario below the most recent low, and on Bitfinex, what's that, 95.22, entering here at 10,000 and change, and then your target would obviously be up here, well above the previous high at 13,764. So those are the two scenarios. Personally, I'm just kind of hoping for this more deeper tracement scenario, because I would just absolutely love to load up extremely aggressively in here if we get it. That would just be such a nice setup. I mean, as I said before, that'd be of the caliber of February there, kind of a major degree long setup. But we'll see how it plays out. And definitely with that time relationship I mentioned, looking August 26th, August 27th, so towards the end of the month, pay very close attention. If we do start breaking down here, that could be a very nice timing area as well as a price area. All right, so we'll just see how Bitcoin unfolds here. Certainly do an update at least next week, but if something happens sooner that's of significance, I'll look at that as well. All right, Serial Trader signing off.